when I spoke with Kome on Saturday, as like a pre-call, just prepping for this thing, I was talking about my previous episode where I was talking about when you're ready to get married and marriage isn't happening, and I was kind of just like encouraging people and sharing overall gist. And I said that someone listened to my podcast and said, "Fakwe, how about the practical side of this thing?" And then I gave her an example that the person had said. So a girl reached out to him and said that he should introduce her to anybody that he knew that was like, you know, thinking about marriage and stuff like that. And then he introduced her to someone, and she said that, his profile, that he's not light skinned and he doesn't look like he makes six figures. And I was just like, sis, are we still doing that in 2023? And I was just like, okay, this person is not really in the same headspace of like being serious to get married. But then I also thought, this is not the first time I'm hearing this thing before. Like, I've heard other people just like brush off people without even getting to know them. And then when I was chatting with Kome, she was like, we talked about it for a while, and then you eventually said, what if this is the hill the person is willing to die on? And I'm like, I don't know about that, because you haven't even gotten to know the person at all. Why would you be willing to, like, why would you not give it an attempt at all to see if this person could even be something more? What does the light skin do for you? And the 6-figure part, like, how do you even know that? You haven't had a conversation about anything. Like, why is this important is what I was just thinking. But tell me what you're thinking when you say this might be who somebody's willing to die on. Like, why is this an important thing for someone? And also being realistic that I know people have preferences, I guess.
No, people have preferences for sure. And I think that's part of the challenge, is that when you are trying to figure out, okay, what's a non-negotiable for me? What is, what do I need to be with somebody? I think a lot of the times we can be quite conditioned to only think of like the emotional, spiritual connections. Like, there's some people that they've really thought about, actually, for me, quality of life and money is kind of it. Like, that's the pinnacle. Like, everything else can't
you be the one bringing the quality of life? Or it has to be that it's the guy that is bringing the quality of life?
Everybody can manage themselves. But some people, they want what they want, right? They want a husband that like makes 6 figures, goes to the golf club, has all the friends that do the things. I think people have envisioned certain lifestyles for themselves. And sometimes that kind of lifestyle, for it to materialize, it requires a partner that is a certain type of way. Like, for example, if we use like our Nigerian culture context, if I want to go to all the best one beds in Lagos, I can't marry a pastor who's an introvert.
Oh my God. Pastors get invited to a lot of things.
They do.
Yeah, but
I'm not thinking of pastor. Pastors go home around 5, like 6 o'clock. They are gone.
Interesting.
So I think depending on what kind of life you are looking to live, I think people are trying to be a lot more honest and realistic about, like, I need to partner with someone who can make that happen. And so if she's looking at this man, for example, and she's thinking, okay, I see that he might be in tech, but from what I know about this entry-level job that he's in, it might take him 5 years to, like, to get to the next level. How much is he going to? You're trying to do all these calculations in your head. And I think while women tend to be pretty good at calculations, there's some things you cannot predict. This man might meet somebody in the elevator one day and the person is like, I like you, come work for me. And he goes from entry level to director in 2 weeks. That's assuming he has all the, the foundational requirements, all that kind of stuff. So there's some things that favor you can't account for.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm curious to learn more about why she feels like light skin and tall and money. Like, what has informed that? Maybe she dated short men before they haven't treated her right. Now she's feeling type of way.
Okay, a couple of things. When I had this, I took it to my husband as well and had a conversation. And my stance at the time was like, honestly, this makes no sense. Like, why would you not even have a conversation at all with the person? And he was kind of on your side with, like, people want what they want, and like it's valid. But then he added the part that ideally we should know that there are non-negotiables and negotiables, things that truly matter in the long run, and things that are really nice to have, but they are negotiable when you think about it logically. Now, I like to think that I'm talking to serious Christians, largely serious Christian women on this platform. Imagine that this is the New Spring audience, aka people that already believe in God, people that are willing to reason with you.
Yeah.
how valid, so not just, this is not the general public, because although this is the public, because it's going on YouTube as well, and anybody can find it, but talking to that like subset of people, and like thinking of this as like somebody you give a crap about, like a friend, a little sister, if that was their approach, that somebody introduced you to someone, you saw their profile, their image was not your vibe based on color, and their job, you said it doesn't look like they get six figures, what would be your response to them, as opposed to let people have what they want?
I mean, I think we have to talk
Would it
about
be different?
Like we
have to talk about what?
Like spec. We have to talk about spec.
Okay.
Like I think I would start there. Like I wouldn't be like, okay, no. I'm like, okay, so really, what's your spec? Because if something has been presented to you and you're like, and when I say spec, I mean like your specifications. Like, what are you looking for? What are you attracted to?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you have to be able to, not even just to me, but it can be helpful sometimes to verbalize some of the things that we're looking for or the decisions that we're making. So if you are telling me that you want a 6-foot man that plays for the NBA, but also serves in his church on the weekends, like I'm gonna ask you to explain to me how that contributes to the bigger vision of your life. As somebody,
and that's where I'm always struggling. Like, how is this relevant to the bigger vision?
For some people, they have decided that this is what they want to do. So it's a bit difficult. Like even though we may not understand why this is their vision, it's still their vision. And I can have a conversation with you about like, okay, is that, and as Christians, I can say, is that a vision you have prayed about?
Is that a vision that helps you actually live a godly married life? And because I knew we were having this conversation, I went on to read even more about settling. And there's another extreme that talks about how, our marriages are mirroring how Christ loved the church. Not an extreme, that's fact if you believe in the Bible. But also how like we should just focus on, can he love like Christ of the church? Can she honor? And like it's almost very bland. Like I don't want that as well. I want to feel something, but I also want to reason. So I hear you on the spec stuff. I just feel like we should also be critical of our specs. Like, where did that come from?
Absolutely. Because we're socialized into these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, even in our like looking for a godly man, right? I think there are socializations that we collect from church culture, from purity culture, that tell us about who a godly man should be. We're always joking about, oh, you're asking for the man that prays in tongues, blah, 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 you are doing all that kind of stuff, right? But that kind of man comes with certain things. There are certain things that there are certain ways that it's funny, but that's the truth. Those kind of men, they come with, like I was telling you that, like for example, you ask for a godly man, and godly men are everywhere. They come in many different shapes, forms, sizes. So you're looking for the one that stands in front of church. Everybody's coming, so oh wow, your husband is a minister. Da, da, da. If that person says he wants to open a church now, you cannot be surprised. You will not be like, babe, what do you mean church? You picked him for that very reason.
People, that's another whole topic given out. People, why do people want to marry pastors?
They don't know. They don't
why?
They don't want to marry. They want to marry men that mimic that level of Christianity.
But like, if they truly do open a church, although personally, I can tell you that. Let me just be honest. Like, I do not envy the workload of pastors. I just do not desire that workload. And I guess that is also me coming to bite myself in the whatever you bite yourself in. That like that's also a preference of not wanting to be in ministry. Although I would not say I was to an extent, I'm in church longer than many pastors because we serve quite extensively and like we're in visible departments in church. So there's that part. It's not the service I'm running from. It's just the idea of responsibility. If it happens one day, would I have to submit to God? Yes. But ideally, it's not my full preference. So I guess this is me also answering my own question that preferences do exist.
They do.
Do you have any last thoughts on that? I want to segue into something else.
I think we should just be critical about our preferences, right? At the end of the day, men and women, like where is that coming from and how does it contribute to the life that you're trying to create for yourself? Because if you use somebody's like spec to design your life, you're not going to be happy. So
yeah, that's it. Essentially, be critical of your specs, but also realize that some of the things that you're holding dear, what if they're not as important in the grand scheme of things? And when you don't even have conversations with people that you're introduced to, how do you even know what they are like? How do you know if you could really have built a great friendship? How do you know if you could have gotten attracted to them. And that 6-figure one is just absolute nonsense to me, because you really don't know. You've not found out anything about them. They're only showing you their job title.
Yeah.
You don't know what properties they own. You don't know who their father is.
What
you don't
their
know
saving habits are.
what their saving habits are.
Yeah.
What financial, exactly. What is the point of having a 6-figure maker who is blowing it, who has some massive debt, who is into drugs on the side, and like, it's like, anyways, you just don't know anything about it. Like, the quality is so much more than that. So it feels very superficial, and in my head, it's telling of your level of maturity. If that's where you stop, you don't need to have a conversation. And the unfortunate thing, this has nothing to do with age. I have a personal example of somebody who literally is closer to 40 as well, and was introduced to someone and did a similar thing. Not that I'm going to get to this topic, maybe I'll move into it. They were chatting on WhatsApp, and his texting habits threw her off, and she just like stopped talking to him. And the person who introduced them was like, you didn't even like talk a bit further, nothing. It feels superficial. I understand the ideas behind it, like what you're saying, but I just feel like you haven't really probed enough to know this person. And yeah, it feels like we're discarding people, which then moves me into this other story that I want to read to you. Okay. So this person, Lori Gottlieb, so Lori Gottlieb thought she knew what she wanted in a man, and she assumed she'd get it. She also wanted love, companionship, and a family. But at 37, she was still single, and racing against her own biological clock, she signed up for a sperm donor, got pregnant, and had her son. She was now a single mom, and dating was bringing her no closer to Mr. Right. She wrote about her frustrations a few years later in an article that became the New York Times best-selling book, Marry Him, The Case for Settling for Mr. Good Enough. And it's an exploration of all the assumptions that women make about our future mates. And, she's arguing that we're shutting ourselves off from some wonderfully eligible marriage partners as a result. I read that a little bit from an interview she did. And first of all, she's not Christian. So that's interesting. But two things I wanted to talk about from this conversation. There's a lot of people now actively considering this sperm donor option. And I'm just like, is this the silence? I know you have to be like picking your words because you're in the public place, but at the same time, I understand the need biologically to want to do that, but what's the ethics as a Christian woman around that? If you were like Christian women who are considering this, because this is actively a thing.
I mean, this topic is a tricky one because I feel like ethically, the Bible doesn't really talk about. The Bible talks about sex outside of marriage, but not like that. The concept of having a child outside of marriage without having sex didn't exist in that time. Like Mary,
for me, it's different. If
you're not being, did not impregnate.
You're not gonna be, Holy Spirit is no longer impregnating people. But like, I would have a different perspective if she adopted a child versus going after a sperm donor, and I'm not sure why.
What do you feel like is the difference though? Because I feel like, is it the fact that it's an unknown person?
I don't know what it is. Let me question my own. I feel like adopting is the kids are already here.
Okay.
You're just like providing shelter and guiding them.
Okay. And
doing it without a family, like without like the structure of family, because it will be the same case either ways. You'll be single either ways. Having a child who doesn't have a father, whether you adopt or you do sperm donor. So why is it different for me?
Like I wonder if it's because like the idea of conceiving a child does work. Like it is our primary understanding of conceiving a child is sex.
No, that one I was going to go there. I was going there in my head, because is it any different for a couple? Like,
no,
like
it's exactly
in my head for a couple, I feel no type of way if they're choosing to go through artificial methods. Although I don't know how I feel about sperm donors, even for couple. Like sometimes
when the sperm donor, would that make a difference? Like if it was like a friend that she wasn't like there's no, it's platonic. You just volunteer to support the process.
I don't know. I still feel some type of way about it. And I don't know if this is how some people in the Catholic Church, I think, felt about IVF and all those other forms of having children in the past. If it's just that it's strange and un like unfamiliar, or if there's something truly wrong with it, because sometimes it's just new. You're just like, I don't know. I feel like is it also kind of a sign of giving up? And is that a bad thing? And how is it different if she was adopting versus if she was finding a sperm donor? But what do you think? What are your thoughts on this topic?
I mean, I think that I recognize that people's biological clocks are ticking. And so, for the most part, I respect a woman's ability to be like, okay, you know what? I don't have a partner. I really want a parent. And modern science makes it available for me to do that now. Because I feel like there's no real difference in like freezing your eggs and using them later. You know what I mean? Like,
that one I feel fine with. Like, you're just.
It's exactly the same thing. It's just like.
It's not. Is this like, you're just going to find a guy to, or some person's sperm versus like you're saving your own eggs so that when you meet somebody that you're ready to have children with, then you have children together.
But
as opposed to
that person though. So I think I obviously I don't think she did it lightly. Like she must have like explored the person. Like these places, they sometimes ask you to provide information about yourself, like family history, etc. So it's not like she walked into a random person on the street and was like, "Can I borrow your sperm?" Like I feel like that was a process.
Sperm banks is still people you don't know for the most part. But even if it's somebody you know,
and people request that, right? So that nobody's gonna come and say, "Oh, you took my child."
Yeah,
I want my child back. Those kind of vibes.
Yeah.
I think you do have to get to a particular point where you feel like this is no longer something that I'm willing to wait for, and I'm going to take this into my own hands. And I feel like maybe it's that part that can be quite uncomfortable for Christians. Is like you are playing God in a way where you're like, I'm not waiting for God to give me a man so I can have a child. I'm going to make this happen myself. Like I can see that perspective being very uncomfortable for people.
But that's the same argument that they could probably use against any assisted reproductive methods for married people.
People do that all the time. Even like I've heard people use that argument for like dating apps, against dating apps. Like, if you go on a dating app, you are trying to play God by finding a partner. I said, I don't. Let's not get into that part. But
I that's interesting because if we're doing that for everything else, like like we're intentional about everything else. And like I was saying yesterday, I need spring, finding jobs, moving houses. We look for everything else. Why is it only when it comes to relationships that we just expect for the person to show up? But circling back to this sperm bank thing, I cannot concretize or articulate why I feel some type of way about it. But I don't know that I'd be in support of it if it was my friend who was thinking about doing this. I would say yes, harvest your eggs and like preserve them, because fertility is truly dwindling with age for a lot of women. But it just feels some type of way. Final thoughts on it for you?
I think I understand. I can understand what it means to get to a point where you feel like this thing may never happen and you want to mother. You want to carry life and bring forth life and nurture children. And so I don't know that I have any biblical backing to say that that's inappropriate. I think there are better questions of like, okay, like, do you have a community to support this child? Like, are your parents, willing to commit? Are your friends going to support you? Like, how do you plan to navigate if you do find somebody in a year? Like, is that person, on board to parent your child in the way that they want to be parented? Like, so I think those are more of the questions that I would ask rather than like, don't do it or do it. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to like, make the decision.
Yeah.
How you going to navigate the consequences that come
with it?
Right.
And for you, does it matter to you if it's adopted or sperm donor? You think the questions remain the same?
I mean, adoption comes with its own types of complications. I think there are different considerations in that way than just getting a
trauma.
A lot of the time, the legalities are very different too. Like adoptions can be open, where you allow the child's birth parents to still be involved. Whereas if you were to, for the most part, from my understanding anyway, with sperm donors, like you have legal full legal responsibility for this child that you're not creating. The person can't come back and say, "Oh, I want to be involved," those kinds of things, right? So they feel
Yeah.
different to me.
Yeah. And even another layer to it, the cost of both of them are similar. Because for the process, it would likely have to be IVF if you're getting sperm from somebody, versus if you're just going to have sex with somebody, that's free, which then brings in fornication. But adoption is also pretty expensive. So they're both around the 20 to 30K mark, which is a lot of money to be spending. But then even freezing your eggs too is also expensive, and that's also a bit of an elitist option.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how about the other part about settling for Mr. Right in front of you, or Mr. Good Enough, because your clock is ticking?
You know, I saw a Reddit thread about this actually. Like I think it was 2 weeks ago, and it was kind of asking people, like, people. I think the question was like, people that settled for their partners, do you regret it?
Okay.
And while it was I think it was quite curated to be positive. A lot of the responses were like, you know, when I chose her, I didn't even think it was going to work. But as we spent time and like as different parts of life showed up, I realized that like this is the person that I needed. And I think for me, that sort of, it didn't really push me to like, okay, just choose. Doesn't matter. It was more just the fact that like, while you can quote unquote settle, I think there are ways when you are in it to improve your experience of that person that we don't really talk about often.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I mean, if you pick someone that, let's say on your non-negotiable list, they need to be they need to know how to sew.
Light skin and
okay, let's use the physical part. Let's use physical part.
Okay.
Somebody who likes to work out, for example, is very fit.
Right.
Right. And so you meet somebody who isn't like that, but they have 9 out of 10 of those things. But that's one thing that's missing is they don't like to work out. While you might feel like, I'm settling, this is a big part of who I am. As you grow with that person, there might be situations that mean that that person ends up taking that up, or they may end up supporting you as you do certain things in it. They themselves might even feel like maybe 2 years in, I'm not really happy with my body, I really want to do this, and they start working out. Like, without you even provoking or asking or anything, they just decide, okay, this is something I want to do. They now even become more into the gym than you are.
Yeah.
So if you had cut them off at that 9 because they didn't have 10, like, there are just some things that I think in our heads we magnify the importance of. And I'm not talking about like, oh, go ahead.
But it could also be the other side where they just keep gaining weight and
you're unhappy, you're not attracted to them. But these are the things that we have to. These are the things that I think we have to accept when we choose somebody. Is that somebody? I think there was a lady on Instagram that was talking about like she's been married 3 times and divorced 3 times, and she was saying that like one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give people is that you have to be okay with who they are now. Potential is great. And to be honest, people see potential all the time, but like if they never change, are you okay with that?
I agree with that one. Yes. If they never change, are you okay with it?
Yeah.
Is how you should be thinking, because we say to look for the potential, but it's also like be realistic where they're at. I do find that like if both of these heads are in the right space, you're both you want more out of life, you want the best for each other, you would honor God, you can agree on like core things, like your friendship is growing and you've been honest about where you see your life going and how you're moving towards it, and you're putting in the work to get there. It might take time, but if you're doing the work, you have the vision, and you will be moving towards that part. Like it will get better. The places I've seen there being issues are, it's not someone's it's not what they're saying alone or where they are right now that you really should be looking at. It's their track record. How have they lived their life up till now? What are the incremental changes that they're making, and how can that help you decide if this potential is worth exploring more? That's kind of that also came from my conversation with Obi yesterday. Like because a lot of our friends, and we were just reflecting, we spoke like for 2 hours about it. Like when he and some of his guys came to Canada, absolute nothing. Some like crappy jobs, and like we were saying how they celebrated one of them's first job. It's a really mere job, like 35K job in Canada, but it was like a job that like a real office job he got after a really long time.
Yeah.
That same guy now is like, he's very low key and you wouldn't necessarily know, but he like,
that's where he was coming from. Okay.
like he like, no, you wouldn't know where he is right now. What I'm saying, like he has blown,
Ooh.
but you would just not know. His when he was single, a lot of women kind of like passed him up.
Yeah.
I don't know how he and his wife, I don't know how they worked it out. I always say like she was very visionary, to be honest. But like he was always somebody that had like a really big vision, and like, and he was doing things. It's just that life wasn't progressing as fast as it should. But he was always moving towards like progressing. He was a hard worker. He wasn't just talking and not doing anything. And like now opportunities have come and he's taking them. Like you were saying about that elevator thing. Somebody who just like elevates your life, that happened for him. Somebody just took a huge chance on him, and like he's upgraded. And it's not just one person. Myself and my husband, like if we could really reflect on like where we started and where we're at now, I was saying that it's not everything you're going to like speak about on the World Wide Web, but if we're ever at a dinner party like with a couple close friends, like if you could just reflect on where you are versus where you're coming from, that whole one shall chase 1,000 and two shall chase 10,000 has been real for us, and it's only been like less than 4 years for us. I cannot imagine how it will be in the future. Not that it doesn't come without its challenges, but I'm just saying that if you find someone that you're able to work with, like what you're saying.
The question is though, is that
how do you know?
Not even that, but if you start in the same place, if you're starting similarly, like I'll give you some of the girls that I know that do stuff like
I see where you're going.
Challenging is where maybe this person, and to be honest, let's even use Nigeria because it's a similar culture, right?
Yes.
You grew up in Canada, you went to school here, you're in your like late 20s, early 30s, you've worked a couple of jobs, you're in a career where maybe you're like mid-management now, you're making like 90K, 100K, let's even say that. Now you meet this guy who maybe has moved here from Nigeria, he's lovely, but his feet haven't really touched the ground yet.
Yes.
Right? And so he's really and he's not working on it. But you know that if you were to partner at this time, you would be essentially supporting him.
Okay.
Right?
That's actually a very good example because it is a real thing happening. But keep going.
You're thinking about, okay, like if we start now, I may be the one paying the bills. Like he may not even let's even say like he's been here only 2 or 3 years. He may not have enough credit to buy a house, for example.
Okay.
So the house that you people buy, maybe it should be your credits that will sustain it, for example.
Okay.
So people are having these things in their heads, are thinking, okay, I'm looking at this man, I know he has potential. But I might have to carry the bulk of the weight at the start.
Okay.
What if that never stops?
So it's a very valid concern, especially because for the women, it feels like you have passed your struggle stage and you don't want to go back to that in a sense. And we women, I don't know what it is, maybe because of our networking skills, or I feel like a lot of women are like doing well for themselves. A lot of women are doing well. And in this example you've given, somebody coming from the new country, from Nigeria, for example, is going to need more time to get established.
Agreed.
The first few jobs might not be as great. So I think in that case, I would be evaluating, if it was somebody I know and love I was talking to, I would be evaluating what are they doing now? So for example, did he have a degree in Nigeria that he's coming to like do a master's? Is he currently struggling with like, immigration back and forth? Okay. But like, is he working? Does he have a job? I would not necessarily marry him right now with his there's a bit of an instability with immigration, with not having a steady job, but we could date if the other things check out. If he has a great character, he has like we share the same core values. Like I feel like serving in church and being known by community is a good value because
it is.
Although you can always fake in church still, but I still think it helps to show your level of commitment to something that you don't have to be doing, and something that's bigger than you. If he has things that check out for him, I would still give him a shot. And then I also think there's a lot of I don't know what the principle is, but I'm sure there is one. Like there's more momentum, which is kind what I said earlier, with when you're
Mm.
partnering with somebody to help you, like maybe the parts that he struggles with, like how many years does it take to do any of these top up courses that they do? He'll be done soon. Like
Mm.
he'll graduate, he'll find a job. After a while, he'll get a better job. It's a privilege that one of you has a good
Startup.
credit
Yeah.
and a good setup. Because when you come together, it's going to be both of you merging resources. And
Mm.
in the beginning stages, how much space do you need to sleep? How much food do you need to eat? The only problem is, as soon as you get married, there's always a chance of creating more people. And then if you now go on mat leave, his job needs to be able to sustain the family. Very valid points. But in this Canada, if somebody's hardworking,
Mm.
on the lower you make, the more the government will even support you. I'm not saying I'm not saying to aim low. I'm just saying that you will not be stranded. But and the suffering will not be long if you're truly partnering and getting better. So in this day and age, people are not struggling as much to find jobs. I think people are finding jobs to be much better, much quicker than say 7 years ago, 7 to 10 years ago when we graduated from school. It was such a struggle. These days, people are finding jobs easier. I just don't think it's that bad. I think that if you find somebody, that was a very long way to say it, but if you find somebody in this day and age who has a good character, a good head on his head, who has like a good degree, a good set of skills which they can work, who is working right now and has like some sort of income coming in, who has bigger goals than where he is right now and is working towards them. Whether that means after he finishes this certificate he's doing, he'll like get a proper job in physiotherapy that he studied, and that's his doctor money that's about to come in, or is like IT and maybe he's no longer wants to practice there, he wants to go to project management and he's going to take the courses and he's doing the work, he's studying hard, he's taking the exams, all that good stuff. I think that's enough to work with. But what you're saying is not as shiny as somebody who has been here for 10 years and has a lovely Audi that they drive and a nice apartment.
I think
like it's not as nice.
Shiny is like it's easier to see the return on investments.
What investment?
You know, like when you partner with somebody, for example, you are emotionally connected, physically, you are building all these things together. You know, you are sharing your stories, you are sharing your dreams. I feel like a lot of the times, I can speak for myself personally. I think we grew up with parents or communities where, like, men and women build together, and then we enjoy the fruit of our labor when it's blooms
together. Yes.
But I feel like right now we're in a place where everybody's building individually, and so I don't necessarily have to really like partner with someone to make a dream or a vision come true.
Because you can do it by yourself.
I can do it by myself. Now, is there benefit in doing it together? Absolutely.
Do you want to do it by yourself?
Some people do.
Because if you do, then you don't need to be having this conversation.
I mean, they want to do it and they want to build, but also have a relationship. Do you get? It's like what I'm building is for me.
I disagree with you on that one, but keep going. Let me let you finish so that I can know what I'm responding to.
Like you both have careers, and I'm building this career for myself. I have this goal of what I want to be. Of course, I want to be in partnership. Just because I want to build doesn't mean I want to be alone. But it isn't necessarily a core requirement of my partner to be able to build with me or for me. Right?
Okay. So what's the core requirement for them?
You know, like it's kind of a separation of church and state, right? My career and my dreams are a bit separate from, while you support me and you're there, all those kinds of things. I think growing up, women, or I can talk from what I saw, like women needed to support their husbands in terms of making sure the house was good, he was coming home to, you know what I mean? Like there's a synergy there. But now I find that isn't necessarily as needed anymore, or like I think secularly. Not as
this reminds me of a conversation we had in church last week, not this Sunday, but my church had the church unusual thing, and it's different kind of service. And one of the panelists just kept talking about modern women, and it was first like triggering, like which one is modern women? But what you're saying is facts. Like the economics have changed. Each person can survive by themselves right now. Yes. Before it was that you needed more of that synergy as you had to have it for things to work. And now what you're saying is that you don't have to have that for things to work. But I believe that marriages still require synergy to work.
Agreed.
Although each couple still gets to define the specifics of how their marriage would work. And like if they want more of a partnership or more of like a traditional marriage of one person rearing kids, one person providing. But ultimately all marriages need to operate, I think especially biblical and like people that are modeling their lives in as like after God's standard for marriage need to think about themselves as like truly becoming one and like bringing their goals to the table and saying, how can you help me achieve these goals? At this point in time, does one person's goals need to step down? And like so you're never truly pursuing two separate lives and just like working together per se. I think come together.
I think these people would agree that they like their goals are together. Like everybody has to agree. Like two cannot work together unless they agree, right?
Okay.
So, but I think it's more of just the fact that like if I'm choosing you and you're not quite there yet, that should not slow me down. Does that make sense?
But how would it slow you down? Like so let's make it practical. So this example of the woman making 90K, mid-level manager or something, and a guy who is fresh from Nigeria 2 years, he should not still be in school. Maybe I don't know what he's doing.
Maybe like an entry. Let's even say he did IT, like an entry level job in IT.
Entry level job and earning how much?
Maybe let's age. I know like people like to elevate like IT numbers. Let's just do 60K.
So 60K and 90K, you don't think they can work that out?
They can, but people are thinking like, okay, we want to
okay. I love the specifics of the exam. Don't worry, I'm not attacking you, but it's a good. I like that we've added like extra details to it. That's like so. The issue is then is the issue that she's making more money than him, because what you're now doing is you're going from making 90K to making 150K if that's 90 plus 60.
But people don't really see it like those people that are
okay. But why?
I think it takes me back to that, like looking at somebody's LinkedIn and trying to decide whether they're going to make six figures or not. Because you're just like, okay, if he came to me and was like, oh, hi, I work at Deloitte, I'm a HR manager. Your mind is thinking, okay, good. 3 vacations a year, our house rent is going to be paid. You can visualize that person's trajectory. And I think that's part of the challenge here is that like women or people in general, let me not speak for women in general because I can't do that, but it can be challenging, I think, for Christian people especially, because we're taught to walk a lot by faith and not by sight, to really figure out, okay, where is this person going? And can I follow along? And if we get to a place where I'm like, if I get to a place where I feel like this is not the life I'm supposed to be living, what happens then? Like if I've chosen you based on this thing of faith, we are going somewhere, he has a plan, it's actionable, we may never get there. Am I okay with that?
Okay, so I hear you very much on like this discrepancies, but in the picture we've painted, there's no issues in my own world. There's nothing I'm seeing. There's somebody's making 60K and surviving by themselves, not just surviving, they have a life, they are managing their credit card. They have they have a place that they're paying regularly for. They are not begging anybody for money for rent or anything like that. When is your birthday? They buy. I was about to say, when is your birthday? They buy you a gift. It might not be a new car, but it can be. It can be. I don't know what else people buy for gifts. It can be a nice bag. Like they can save up for it. Like I don't understand what the issue is here. Like because when you merge lives, you are merging capacities as well in an ideal world, because you're bringing more together. You're going from earning 90K, ma'am, to earning 150K together if you truly want to bring that together. So the issue is that you're not starting from the same level. If somebody's already working as an IT manager, does he want more? Because those are the conversations you should be having in this dating season, because you're in information gathering season. So what does he want next? And like express that you are working and you're enjoying it, but you still want to be treated nice, and like your dream for him is for him to even be, I don't know what the dream is, she wants to continue working, so him to keep making even more. And like is that something he wants? Because you were talking with me a while ago before this conversation about the desire for less. Like if he wants less, then maybe that can be a flag, that's a red flag that I don't know if I really want that, because I want someone that wants more. But I don't see any issues with that 90 and 60K. I feel like there's so much that is workable there because it won't stay like that. And if it stays like that, what's the worst part?
But I think that's the question.
That
That's the question I think people need to answer. Is that if it stays like that, are
yeah.
you going to be okay? Do you get? Like, because I think people
Why would
sometimes
you
are
not be
scared to
okay?
answer that question. Eh?
Why would you not be okay if it stays like that?
My sister, people are want, also we're on the internet. Soft life has entered the blood. You know what I mean? I think people
Yeah.
are seeing lives and experiences that maybe before we didn't really have access to. And so if
Yeah.
you're telling someone that like, oh, 90 and 60 should be okay, but online they are seeing 0 and 300, and 300 is spending, and like it's gonna be hard to convince that person that they should not aim for 300 instead of
I think we
60.
should also be honest with ourselves that you're only seeing parts of people's lives. How about 90
Absolutely.
and 60K where you
Yeah.
come home to dinner made regularly? How about 90 and 60K where when his parents and family members try to do nonsense, he stands up for you and like don't mess with my wife? How about 90 and 60K where
Mm.
you don't got to worry about nothing if things break because you know that this person has got it? How about 90 and 60K where somebody is giving you peace, no problem? You yell and act crazy. He says, "Ma'am, calm
Mm.
down. We're in this together." How about 90 and 60K where God is leading both of you, God is helping both of you, giving you ideas for
Mm.
innovative things to invest in, where one day he puts 1,000 in his stock and next morning it skyrockets and all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
no longer 90 and
Yeah.
60K? How about 90 and 60K where you apply for mortgage in an era where the interest rate is so low and all of a sudden your dream house is actually
Yeah.
possible? How about in a year you sell that house and next thing you know you're able to buy even more because you've built credit over that time?
Yeah.
This is my life, as like it is my experience. I can tell you, I wish I could be as detailed as I want to be, but like this,
Yeah.
there's just possibilities that are endless. I don't. Yeah, if I were to be
But this is
honest
where
with
the flaws
people,
are, I think, is that what you're describing is also possible with like 0 and 300, 0 and 250,
it is.
0
So,
and 40.
but she said she wants to. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like you can have an amazing quality of life for somebody who only makes like that you accept anyway that you want. At if he's only making 40K, you can live that life. If that's the life,
and you could also be reversed. It could be 0 and 400 and all these things will still be happening. Like he's treating you well, and for some reason you just have no peace. So like you also have to just remember I think this is where we started the conversation from. What do you want for your life, and like what is really important to help you get there.
Yeah.
What the girls are doing on Instagram is that's their business. Like, are you happy with your life? Define what you want for your life and get like square minded on it. Like
I think
that's
you define what settling is.
yes,
I
I like
honestly
that.
feel like that is the end, because like you cannot use somebody
Yes,
else's definitional bar to define like what I consider settling could be somebody's icing on the cake.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think everybody should mind where our settling gauges are. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
maybe do some if dating, and I can talk to someone who's dating right now, or I should say that, let me
Ooh.
know close any channels. Dating and still taking application. Still taking application. But
Why is that? Would you feel some type of way if he was doing the same as well?
I mean, yeah, as long as there's no like we're not exclusive. So I mean
Okay, keep going.
you know what I like. I think it is what it is, and that like I think we do a lot of comparison when it comes to settling. Like there's this
But
fallacy.
we should not be doing set.
We
We should not be
shouldn't.
comparing our lives,
Yeah.
but we
The
do.
fallacy
Yes,
that something better will show up while you're trying to
yes,
decide is going to keep you from really good things.
yeah,
You
yeah,
deal with what's in the present, what is here right now, and you make a decision about the quality of your life.
yeah.
Because even if you were to know in the future, you still can't predict every single step that's going to get you there eventually. So stick with the vision that God has given you for your life, and I feel like the rest of it should fall into
And
place.
yeah, and honestly, evaluate your criteria. Talk to
Mm-hmm.
people that know you, that love God, and
Mm-hmm.
whose lives are you like who are living godly lives and can help you shape. Like, okay, are you being real with this your criteria?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Because sometimes you think something is all that important and it really isn't. And I just feel like let's not waste time Like, let's not waste good people, good opportunities. That's what it is. Let's not waste good opportunities because we're being superficial. Like, I want for everybody that wants to be married to meet great people and build good lives together. I don't want it to be that I feel very passionate about this, even though I have my own marriage and I can just go and face my own business, but that's kind of why I'm here. I just feel like I want everybody that wants a marriage to understand that, define the criteria for what a good marriage is, and make sure that the criteria isn't to choose is actually feeding into that, not like superficial stuff that will matter in the long run. That's essentially what I think. So
Yeah.
evaluate your
We're not
criteria.
negating chemistry. We're not negating stuff like that.
No, we're not.
We're just saying, like, because I think even me, sometimes I struggle with that in terms of how do I know that this is like an important thing for me going forward? Because even when you were saying like, oh, like, am I single? Am I dating? Like, I feel like it's one of those things where you, over time, as you meet people, develop a better understanding of what's actually important. You know what I mean? Like, people say, oh, I want a man that is authoritative. But what do you mean by that? You know, before I used to be like, oh, I want a man that, if he says stand up, I will stand up. But I was like, because in my head, I felt like I wanted somebody who was sure. That's what I was looking for. Somebody whose word I could trust. But what I was
somebody who was like confident in his own like self and who was assertive, maybe.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's what I was looking for. But authoritative was the only word that I had at the time.
Got it.
So when I'm screening, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was saying that when I was using the word authoritative to screen, it wasn't panning out the way I wanted it to. And so when I found the word assertive, I was like, oh, that's a better description of what I'm looking for. Because when people would be like, when men try to do that whole like authoritative, you can't. I said, well, don't talk to me like that. I mean,
that's not what I want. Yeah,
but
just
when
to get it. Well, this
saying, like, I wanna see you. I've made plans. I'm like, oh,
I like that. Yeah,
that's what I'm looking for.
Intentional, assertive, has a mind of his own. Yeah, I get what you mean. So finding the right words to describe what you mean, or not even just the right words, like thinking through why you want what you want, which is something I think about it properly so that you don't screen for the wrong things. Okay, I want to wrap on like this thought that we shared previously about how sometimes we say, what happens if you don't get married? And like, what do you do if you don't get married? And your answer kind of like blew my mind. Not blew my mind, but just helped me realize, this makes total sense. So just talk about it real quick.
So like I've said before that I find that question a bit funny because I'm already living that answer. Like the question is like, oh, like what if it was your plan B about not getting married? I said I'm already living. I'm not married, so I'm currently living that life. Like there is no plan B. That is my current life, my current living situation. The government knows that I don't have a husband. Like I don't know what else you want me to say. So like the question should more be like, are you living the life that you want to live while either waiting or desiring or working on being married? Because like you only have one life. There is no plan B to not being married. Like you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm saying, okay, if I don't get married by the end of my life, this is what I'm going to do. My life continues without a husband right now, and so it's better for me to be honest about that and not, because really, what would the plan be? To still be single, to be divorced, like what else? Like there's really no other option. I'm living that option right now, and so I think
the question generally comes when people do things like wait to do the things they want to be doing in life until they feel like they get married. Things like travel, buying property, even that have kids one. I don't think you should wait till you get married though to have kids. But then I understand that. I don't know if I understand. I'm going to go explore that one more. I don't know what I feel about it. But yeah, I think it comes from things like that. Just realizing that, like, on one hand, you should be like believing the life you want to be living, but also trust God. Man, this is a very nuanced conversation, but I like that we uncovered some layers to it at least. Yeah. So. Any word for the single people who are tired of the current dating environment?
I mean, one, I get it. Like dating burnt me out last year, second half of last year. Would not recommend. But but I know that it can be really difficult to wait. And I don't
Yeah.
even like the word waiting anymore because it feels like I'm stagnant or like trapped. Like I don't really like that word anymore. I'm living a life where I'm desiring partnership and I'm working on it. And
Mm.
so I understand that we do live in a world that can be really like it's Valentine's month this month. Everybody's saying, "Oh, sorry to the singles." I said, "Sorry for yourself." Like I can't, I cannot live in a world where like that becomes my like label for a while. Like it's not very
Yeah.
helpful. And it's not something to
Yeah.
be ashamed of either. Like I know that there is a place of partnership. Like that desire is there for a reason. And
Yeah.
sometimes the process of getting there just looks really different. So I
Yeah.
would say take breaks, expand your network. Like something that I feel like I've really been thinking about from Fopsy is really like I guess being more vocal about my desire to be married to other
Yeah.
people. Like being like, this is something that I'm looking for. If you know someone or feel like you know someone that would be a good partner for me, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes it's uncomfortable to put yourself out there like that because we don't live in a society that's kind of matchmaky that way.
We should though, because like, which kind of leads me into my other thing. Do you feel like marriage as a construct is overrated? And maybe that might be something I'm better suited to answer. I don't know, but like, does it
Overrated how?
like or overemphasized? Maybe like, is it? Are we too obsessed with marriage as a society?
I don't think marriage per se, but I think the idea of intimacy and being seen, because it isn't just marriage that people are after per se. Like people get married for all sorts of reasons. You know what I mean? But I
Mm-hmm.
think this idea of having a person, of being seen by that person, of having your needs met by that one person,
Mm-hmm.
um, it is something that we struggle with, and it is something that's actually like realistic.
Yeah,
So
intimacy is like a valid. I think it's a almost fundamental human need, and I think a
yeah,
lot of us will get it in committed relationships because as we get older, our
mm,
friends are also getting into relationships. So like the less there's less people to be like that close with.
yeah,
But I think, like you were saying yesterday in New Spring's chat, it's not just marriage has more to it than friendship and like
mm,
and familiar relationships. It's a different kind of bond as
yeah.
well, and there's something to be desired from it.
So, but yeah, single people, it's
Yeah.
okay. Take breaks. It'll happen.
Yes.
All you need is one yes, the right yes. I've been encouraging
Yes.
myself with that.
It takes one person,
Just
just
one
one.
person.
When people are
One.
saying, "Oh, there are no men, there are no good women," it just takes
It just
one.
takes
There
one.
has to be one
So,
great person for you. So, yes, that's a great note to end on. Thank you, Kome. This was like so fun. I love when I enjoy conversations by myself because I know that people will enjoy it as well.
oh,
Thank you for
definitely.
spending your evening with
Oh,
me.
thank you for having me.
Do you have anything you want to plug? Any
Anything I want to
business
know?
or thing that you care about that you want to plug?
That's a good question. I think it's important that you, as you navigate dating and relationships, find places and spaces, both physically and digitally, like online, where you can be fed by the things that you need to hear, and also I think have a bit of critical thinking as well, where people are asking questions or sharing perspectives that maybe they don't align perfectly with yours, but give you an opportunity to explore why you think the way you think, and really, I guess, hone in on those values that are necessary for you to thrive in your relationships.
I think God intended you to say that, which is very interesting. While I was waiting for you, because I was ready earlier than I needed to be for this call, I was reading my book again, Situationship, because I'm going somewhere and I'm supposed to like refresh, like talk about my book as well.
Ooh.
And I opened the middle and landed on prioritize feeding your mind. And he goes,
Oh,
I'm serious. And he goes, just like our bodies are replenished by eating and exercising, our spirits and souls need to be refreshed. The internet makes it easy to find amazing people who have been gifted with wisdom about various subjects, including marriage. Find biblically sound people who you relate to and keep learning about principles for godly marriages and building godly families. Wisdom is not exclusive to Christians, and you can still learn a lot from people who do not share your faith. However, if you're Christian, consider that you will have to sift your learnings through the eyes of the Bible's teachings. I have some more specific recommendations in the other resources chapter of this book, But here are some suggestions for feeding your mind. So this is around page 54 in case you have my book Situationship, which you should go and buy, by the way. Guys, go
I
buy
have
my
it.
book.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh yes, Kome is the day one. Okay. And then the resource that, like, the one I read, because it was a longer portion of text, was like, be active in your local church or in a local church. Being a part of a local church is beneficial for you, even in ways you might not be able to quantify today. Being active in a church means you are known by name in your local church by a significant number of people, and that you actively serve in one area. As an individual and as a family, if you marry and have children, you increase your chances of finding like-minded people to do life with. You get to be a part of something bigger than yourself by being active in a local church. It helps you to be more other focused and less self-centered. Being in close company with other believers also means harnessing the strength of a community of faith during difficult seasons and being able to share in others' joys. And I was just like, okay, self, look at you being articulate. But really, I think you're meant to say that about like prioritizing feeding your mind, because we're not blank slates, we're always absorbing. So it's important that you surround yourself with people that are helping you think better and sharpen your focus. Because if you're not actively doing it, you're kind of passively doing it and you're just absorbing whatever lands, and whatever sticks will stick. This was awesome, Kome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Super duper appreciate it today. It was such an awesome conversation. And honestly, when we get bigger on the podcast, we'll fly you in and have like an in-person thing for you. So y'all, that was an incredible conversation we just had with Kome on all things about settling. And I love that she brought the realistic parts of things. Sometimes I'm like very specific in how I'm thinking. So I like to bring in the diversity of perspectives and real life examples of what's happening. So if you've enjoyed this episode, I'm sure you can think of somebody who would also enjoy it. So be sure to share it to your story, share it with a friend, put it in the group chat, and let it be discussed. This was really awesome, and I'm looking forward to having more guests join me in conversations like this. If you have ideas for topics that need to be discussed, be sure to DM me at Fopsy the Great or Dear Fopsy. Fopsy the Great is my personal account, and Dear Fopsy is the podcast account. Follow us everywhere. You're listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Pods, Google Podcasts, everywhere. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And if you didn't know that we record video as well, we have that set up on YouTube. So go watch, go join the conversation, add your own thoughts, and that's how we build this community. And one day we'll blow. I'll figure out how to give back to the community. Until then, I'm yours truly, Fopsy the Great, Papa and Kwacha, signing out.